I'm Alex Bell, host of To The Point on ABC 10, and over the next 30 minutes, we're looking at the major changes so far in the Trump transition and addressing what it could all mean for California in the weeks and months ahead. On Wednesday, there was a historic moment at the White House. President Biden and President-elect Trump met in the Oval Office. The country seeing the start of the transfer of power. The White House saying this is about showing what a peaceful transfer of power looks like. Biden promised a smooth transition of power. Trump thanked Biden, and this meeting did not happen 4 years ago when Trump lost to Biden. The president-elect's cabinet is also starting to take shape. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz resigned from Congress Wednesday night after Trump picked him as the next attorney general. If the pick is confirmed by the Senate, Gaetz will oversee the nation's top law enforcement agency that had been investigating him over the last year over alleged sex crimes. The Justice Department ultimately decided not to pursue criminal charges against him. On Thursday, Trump nominated Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. If confirmed, Kennedy would be in charge of one of the biggest departments in the U.S. government, including Centers for Disease Control and the Food and Drug Administration. Tulsi Gabbard, former Democratic Congresswoman turned Trump supporter, has been picked to be the Director of National Intelligence. The Army National Guard veteran who ran for president in the Democratic primaries in 2020 will also need to be confirmed by the Senate. Then we have Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who has been tapped as President-elect Trump's Secretary of State. Rubio is the vice chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and a member of the Committee on Foreign Relations. And he often talks about foreign threats, especially from China. He warns that China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia are increasingly partnering against the United States. Here's what he said on Capitol Hill following Trump's announcement.
It's a tremendous honor to the president would place his confidence in me in a position of such importance. It's also a tremendous responsibility, and the job of the Secretary of State is to execute on the foreign policy set by the elected president of the United States, and I hope to have the opportunity to do it if my current colleagues here in the U.S. Senate confirm me.
Rubio ran for president in a crowded GOP field in 2016. He left the race when he lost the Florida primary. Trump has dozens of cabinet positions to fill. Here's ABC's Rachel Scott with more decisions made so far.
President-elect Donald Trump stacking his administration with staunch loyalists, announcing a string of appointments. Trump revealing he has selected Fox and Friends weekend host Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary. The pick even catching some Republicans off guard. The U.S. Army veteran, who has led 2 conservative veterans groups, would oversee the Pentagon and 1.3 million active duty troops. Hegseth just days ago said he doesn't believe women should be in combat roles.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated.
He has no government experience, but has been a staunch Trump loyalist. Hegseth called on Trump to clean house at the Pentagon, blasting its message of diversity as strength as, quote, garbage.
The Pentagon likes to say, our diversity is our strength. What a bunch of garbage. In the military, our diversity is not our strength. Our unity is our strength.
One of his biggest supporters, billionaire Elon Musk, will lead a new Department of Government Efficiency alongside entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy.
Take over, Elon, just take over.
Despite the name, the Department of Government Efficiency doesn't currently exist. Trump says it will provide advice and guidance from outside of government, but there are still questions about how exactly it would operate or be funded. Musk pitched the idea directly to Trump earlier this year.
I think it would be great to just have a government efficiency commission that takes a look at these things and just ensures that the taxpayer money, the taxpayers' hard-earned money, is spent in a good way. And I'd be happy to help out on such a commission.
I'd love
if it were formed.
Musk has poured more than $100 million into helping Trump's campaign. And sources tell ABC News he has been at Mar-a-Lago nearly every day since Trump was elected, listening in on calls with foreign leaders and weighing in on staffing decisions. And as Trump promises to overhaul U.S. intelligence agencies, the president-elect announcing John Ratcliffe, his former director of national intelligence, who served as a fierce loyalist in Congress, will serve as CIA director. And South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem will lead the Department of Homeland Security.
Let's send President Trump back to the White House.
Trump once considered Noem a potential running mate, but she fell off the shortlist after writing in her memoir that she had shot and killed the family dog. If confirmed, Nome would manage the Secret Service, the Coast Guard, and FEMA, along with immigration agencies like Border Patrol and ICE, working hand in hand with Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, to implement Trump's mass deportations.
It is going to be a big operation. And President Trump has already indicated that he wants to start by making sure that we're deporting the most dangerous first.
And rounding out those announcements, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who Trump says will serve as the ambassador to Israel. The president-elect saying Huckabee will work tirelessly to bring about peace in the Middle East.
Trump has also named former New York Congressman Lee Zeldin to lead the EPA. He will help carry out Trump's energy and environmental agenda. And Trump picked New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik to be his UN ambassador. She was the president-elect's first cabinet pick for his second term. And in Congress, Republicans now control both the Senate and the House. It'll be the first time Republicans have control of the Senate, House, and the White House since 2017. South Dakota Senator John Thune has been named the next Senate Majority Leader. Republicans selecting a new leader for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Thune is replacing Senator Mitch McConnell.
And this Republican team is united. We are on one team. We are excited to reclaim the majority and to get to work with our colleagues in the House to enact President Trump's agenda.
After 2 rounds of secret ballots, Thune defeating Senator Rick Scott of Florida and Senator John Cornyn of Texas. And in the House, Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson has unanimously won the Republican nomination to be Speaker once again. Johnson was elected as an interim Speaker back in 2023 after Kevin McCarthy was ousted. Meanwhile, there have been a lot of questions about 2 conservative policy agendas in the race for the White House. One is the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, and then the Trump campaign's Agenda 47. Ariane Dantil with our National Verify team explains how the 2 plans overlap.
I will fight for you, for your family, and your future.
After Donald Trump was elected the 47th president of the United States, we received questions about which policies he might enact. Verify viewer Eddie asked us to compare Project 2025 and Agenda 47. Project 2025 is the Heritage Foundation's roadmap to transform the government in favor of conservative social policies and ideals. Agenda 47 is the Trump campaign's policy platform. Though Trump has multiple connections to the authors of Project 2025, he has never publicly endorsed it, and he and his campaign distanced themselves from the initiative ahead of the election. So, what do the 2 plans have in common? Using these sources, I'll walk you through where they overlap and how they differ. First is education. Both policy plans call for the elimination of the Department of Education. The Project 2025 authors argue getting rid of it will empower students and families, not government. While Agenda 47 details Trump's desire,
Sending all education and education work and needs back to the states.
both plans also call for limits on what can be taught in schools, including critical race theory and teachings on gender ideology. Trump's plan covers more topics, including, quote, inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content, and would issue penalties for public schools that don't comply. Next. Neither Project 2025 nor Agenda 47 propose ending gay marriage, as some have claimed online. But both plans call for rolling back protections for LGBTQ+ people, especially for transgender people. Project 2025 would ban transgender people from serving in the military and ban the use of public monies for transgender surgeries for service members. In Agenda 47, Trump says he will revoke gender-affirming care policies and ask Congress to stop taxpayer money from being used for gender-affirming procedures. Trump also says he will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the U.S. government only recognizes 2 genders, male and female, which are assigned at birth. We compare even more topics, including abortion and pregnancy proposals, on our website, verifythis.com. With your Verify, I'm Ariane Till.
California officials are responding to fears of federal cuts and changes. California State School Superintendent Tony Thurmond is pushing to protect education funding, and he says eliminating the Department of Education could cost California as much as $8 billion in funding for low-income students and special education students. Thurmond says the department is in constant contact with lawmakers in Washington, pushing them to protect that funding.
Let me be clear, this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue of continuing to assure that students have access to the resources that they are entitled to under the law.
Thurman says it would be illegal for that money to be taken away. That federal law guarantees money for low-income and special education students. Governor Gavin Newsom also visited Washington to prepare the state for the incoming Trump administration. He met with the California House delegation led by Nancy Pelosi and is working to get everyone on the same page.
And I was with an American president last week when I got a phone call from him saying he wanted to support our efforts on disaster recovery in Ventura, California, that was suffering from a major wildfire. There was no conditions. He didn't ask me to change policy on water in order to support the American people in my home state. That's not the state of mind of Donald Trump.
Governor Newsom also called for a special session for state lawmakers in December to, quote, help, quote, Trump-proof the state. With President-elect Trump promising mass deportations, California immigration advocates are urging action on clemency at the state capitol. During the last Trump administration, Governor Newsom and Governor Brown used their pardon power to ensure that immigrant and refugee community members who had served their time did not face double punishment of detention and deportation. ABC 10's Devin Truby talked with legal experts about what other concerns the immigrant community has ahead.
President-elect Donald Trump, speaking of mass deportation and immigration as a top priority, has many scared of what happens next. For Sacramento immigration attorney Julian Sanchez, he says based on Trump's past term, they're anticipating the end of temporary protected status, end of DACA, and issues for those with a criminal history.
Consult with an attorney to see if there's anything they're eligible for. If they have any criminal offenses, any criminal history in the past, consult with an attorney. See whether that's something that they should try to address, maybe vacate it.
Sanchez has an increase in calls from concerned clients. Equal Justice Law Group says this week they've seen calls about immigration double.
People are panicking.
For the past 2 months, they've seen changes in court. The Department of Homeland Security appealed judges' decisions to grant asylum, so that person's status is not complete until the appeal is done. Doris said she went from appearing twice per case to now multiple times.
But we're seeing delays in biometrics, which tells us that Department of Homeland Security is taking a closer look at the biometrics of asylum seekers. There's just a higher standards right now, I would say, for the evidence, right, and preponderance of evidence that one must provide for asylum cases. So
the legal experts advise to consult with an attorney now so the application process can be well underway before inauguration. Carry a copy of your claim with your unique confirmation number with you always, so if you do get stopped, you have proof you're working on your status.
We know if you're watching this at home, there is so much to unpack. So I want to go ahead and bring in political analyst Steve Swatt now. Steve, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to take a big breath before we get started here. There's so much happening every second. And I know we were talking on the phone earlier, and you said in terms of Trump's appointments that people should not be surprised by this. This is going to be a whole remake of the federal government. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yes, I believe there are a lot of people who are shocked by what they're saying right now, but they should not be surprised because Donald Trump telegraphed this throughout the entire campaign and was also prominent in the Project 2025 blueprint. What he wants to do is, first of all, he wants to hollow out maybe 50,000 civil servants who work in the federal government and replace them with pure loyalists, loyal to him. And that is very important to him. In terms of his cabinet proposals, he wants them to be 100% loyal, but also he has said on the campaign trail that he wants retribution. And so I think we need to expect that this is what he is doing, and he looks like he's putting in place a structure to get to the point where he's like the head of everything, and he's going to get whatever he wants.
And you said that he's seeking retribution. Break that down for us a little bit.
Well, he was angry, for example, at the military because he wanted the military to come in and actually provide law enforcement during the George Floyd riots or demonstrations. And he had asked his defense secretary, can't we just shoot these people in the legs? And the defense secretary said, no, we're not going to do that, that the military does not get involved in domestic disputes. They are not an arm of the domestic law enforcement community. And so he refused to do it, and Trump backed down. Well, now with perhaps a more pliant defense secretary, he might get what he wants.
And I do want to get to some of Trump's appointments. Again, coming down every day. We are continuing to follow this. I want to start, though, with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. first. Trump announced on Thursday that he will nominate RFK Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Kennedy, we know, has been an activist for the anti-vaccine movement. Trump says Kennedy would target drugs, food additives, and chemicals. Based on everything that we know so far about him, what do you think we can expect to see from him if he does get confirmed?
If he gets confirmed, I think, first of all, he's an anti-vaxxer, which everybody knows. And he's really pretty vocal about those vaccine cocktails for young kids. And so whether he can do anything to remove them or wants to remove them, I don't know. He has indicated he won't remove the vaccines, but he has the bully pulpit to say to parents, don't use them, for example. Another example, he wants to take fluoride out of the public water supply. And fluoride has proven to be very effective against tooth decay for young people. And so that's another thing we could look forward to. He and President Trump, President-elect Trump, believe that there are too many regulations in terms of on the food industries. And so he may want to get rid of some of those regulations that deal with labeling, food labeling, and also food safety. So I think those are some of the things that professionals in the healthcare field are concerned about.
And another appointment that was made was Pete Hegseth. Trump has nominated him as the defense secretary. Hegseth is a co-host of Fox News Channel's Fox and Friends Weekend and has been a contributor on the network since 2014. He developed a friendship with Trump, who made regular appearances on the show, as we know. And Hegseth, he served in the Army National Guard from 2002 to 2021, deploying to Iraq in 2005 and then to Afghanistan in 2011. He does have 2 Bronze Stars. If confirmed by the Senate, he would inherit the top job during a series of global crises, ranging from Russia's war in Ukraine and the ongoing attacks in the Middle East. This has been a topic of conversation. A lot of lawmakers in Washington looking at these appointments. Is this one surprising?
It is surprising because he has no experience in running like a large company or experience in running anything. And you have to remember, the Defense Department is an $800 billion organization, and there are nearly 3 million employees in the military. And so that takes a lot of management skills. And so far, we have not heard that he has many management skills.
So why do you think Trump chose him specifically?
Well, I think he chose him. One, Trump wants to blow up the system. I mean, he really does. He wants to remake the system and get rid of the swamp, as he has said many times. He has had trouble, for example, with military generals who pushed back when President Trump was in power and didn't let him do what he wanted to do. And here you've got a gentleman who is nominated to be defense secretary who has said, for example, that some people who commit war crimes, some military people who commit war crimes should be pardoned, that a slew of generals should be fired if they support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he has also said that liberals are anti-American or against America. And so that could allow President Trump then to say, okay, if you believe that, if there is a protest, for example, that perhaps gets out of hand, we want to bring in the military to take care of that. And one other thing, he has said that women should not be in combat.
I do want to switch to Matt Gaetz now. We know that on Wednesday, Trump nominated Florida Representative Matt Gaetz to serve as his attorney general, talking about people that are, lawmakers in Congress and in Washington, both sides of the aisle. They seem to be really surprised by this appointment. We know that Gaetz resigned from Congress on Wednesday night. The House Ethics Committee has been investigating an allegation that Gaetz paid for sex with a 17-year-old. Though that probe effectively ended when he resigned, Gaetz has denied any wrongdoing. Trump picked Gaetz. Why?
Again, he's a bomb thrower. And President-elect Trump wants to be a bomb thrower in terms of, shaking up the federal bureaucracy. Gaetz has fought with the FBI. I mean, when the FBI was investigating him for sex trafficking, he said it was unfair. Former President Trump investigated by the FBI, and so there's some synergy there. They both have some problems with law enforcement, especially the FBI. They believe they overstepped their bounds. Gaetz has said he wants to abolish the FBI, Whether he can do that as Secretary of Defense, Attorney General, I don't know. But it's interesting, and when you bring up the fact that members in Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, have some issues with this, this is probably the one nomination that will have the most trouble.
People are being very vocal about this. Lawmakers are being very vocal.
Yes, and Gates is not well liked inside Congress. And
why?
Why? It's because his behavior. I mean, and he's again sort of a bomb thrower. It doesn't go along with the system.
They're looking for more decorum.
More decorum also. Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that if the report from the House Ethics Committee comes down, do you think if some details come out from that could sway people or change their mind about any of this?
You know, I think it might have some effect. There some details have come out already in terms of leaked details. I mean, there are a number of senators. I mean, the Senate is where people get confirmed, and so there's a cushion there for Trump and a cushion there for Gates to get confirmed. However, a number of people already have come out and said this is very troubling to have Gates the nominee for Attorney General, and so I think, you know, if that report from the Ethics Committee comes out, it will not make it easier on him. That's for sure.
And I do want to get to John Thune, elected as a new Senate Majority Leader. Yes. We saw this happen. A longtime politician from South Dakota. Republicans have elected him as the next Senate Majority Leader. He will succeed Senator Mitch McConnell. Was this a big surprise?
Well, he was one of three members of the Senate who are running. It's somewhat of a surprise only in the fact that he is not, you know, known as a MAGA Republican. He's a traditional conservative, institutional Republican, you know, like Mitt Romney, for example, and the way Republicans used to be. He has been critical in the past of former President Trump. He was critical. He basically said he should not run into 2016 after that Access Hollywood tape came out.
And he's been critical on the overturning of the 2020 election.
Absolutely. He's very critical of Trump then. And so he has made peace with Trump. He now says that his #1 priority as Senate leader will be to get the Trump agenda passed. So he has changed. He's come on board to some degree, actually to a large degree.
What do you think are going to be some of his biggest challenges navigating this role?
Well, his biggest challenge, I think, is that in some cases, there will be Republicans who will disagree with next President Trump, and he's got to figure out how to mollify those Republicans and also keep his word with Trump. I mean, you know, Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, for example, Susan Collins in Maine, and there will be some others who will break from the Trump position on a number of occasions. And so he's going to have to navigate that, make sure he still gets 51 votes.
I think one of the biggest questions many people have is, are these appointees, are they going to be confirmed by the Senate? What does that look like? What could happen?
Well, that is interesting also, because there is a way. Right now, the job of the Senate, as laid out in the Constitution, is you confirm presidential appointments. That's their job. That's one of their major jobs. But what happens if you turn down one of these appointments? There is something called a recess appointment, where the president can appoint someone to a cabinet position, and if the Senate leader okays it, that person gets confirmed without a vote. So that will be interesting to see if Matt Gaetz, for example, goes down.
That's what I was going to say. Could we see that happen?
It's possible. It's very possible. And President Trump supposedly has been urging Thune to okay recess appointments. And Thune, from what I have read, has indicated his willingness to do that.
You think there's going to be pressure there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the balance of power. We know that Republicans now have control of the House and the Senate. You know, any president would love that amount of power. But when we're looking at a place like California, what does this mean for California's policies? And I want to start first with environmental laws. What does that look like?
Well, for example, in the 1960s, the Environmental Protection Act was approved. And what they basically said is that you have to follow the federal regulations. That's what they told the states. But they gave a waiver to California. And they said, California, because we have a particular problem with smog, you can regulate tailpipe emissions, for example, in cars. And California has done that and has led the nation in doing that. President Trump when he was in office the first time, tried to get California to lose that waiver. California sued, went to court, was successful. Courts have changed since then, and I could see that in terms of the environment being a real problem for California because, California needs that waiver and wants that waiver, and they may try to get rid of that.
And a lot of conversation here in California, of course, has been immigration, deportation. What would mass deportations do to California's economy?
It would hurt California's economy tremendously.
Like if you had to put some figures on it, what does that look like?
For example, supposedly about 70% of farm workers are undocumented immigrants. If they should be rounded up and deported, you lose 70% of your farm workers. What does that do to California's $57 billion agriculture industry? It devastates it. Where are they going to get people to work the fields, for example, and things like that? So that's just one example. And so this deportation, which could be, in California, what I think it's something like 1.8 million undocumented, could hurt California's economy to a great deal. And it's not just in agriculture, it's in other fields also, where these are valuable employees who do pay taxes. And yet, if they're deported, then those jobs go unfilled.
And before we go here, I do want to talk about Governor Newsom's trip to D.C. We know that he met with the Biden administration. They discussed everything from zero-emission vehicles to disaster relief, issues that have been targeted, by President-elect Donald Trump. Newsom has said that he wants to Trump-proof California. But I want to ask you, with him going to D.C., meeting with the Biden administration, why was this important for him to go? And should he have gone after seeing the way voters turned out this election in California?
Well, I suppose he could have done it in a phone call. A meeting with President Biden. But, Governor Newsom is a political animal, and he wants to be the face of the resistance to Trump 2.0. And so he got himself on television a lot, meeting with members of the House delegation, meeting with President Biden. And so that was important to him. And it's important to him politically because if he wants to become president, then, being the leader of the resistance for the next 4 years would play very well among Democrats. But when he went to visit with President Biden, he asked for some specifics. He wanted $5.2 billion in reimbursement funds coming back to California for emergency funds that were used during the pandemic. And I'm sure he's thinking, we want those funds now because after January 20th, do you think President Trump's going to give us that money? Probably not.
All right, Steve Swatt, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. And just know, our conversation does not end here. We are always working to bring you the latest information. You can always download our free ABC 10 Plus app wherever you stream, and we'll keep you updated on air and online. Thank you so much for joining us.